Hittle, the mud has already swallowed one of your boots. You leave it. You keep walking, because the column keeps walking, and to stop is to be trampled or lost in the trees. Your rain has not stopped in 2 days. It runs off the rim of your helmet, down your neck, into a wool tunic that has not been dry since dawn. Your shield hangs off your left arm like a wet door, the leather cover soaked through, the layered wood beneath it drinking the water and growing heavier with every mile. It is autumn, in the year 9 AD. You are deep in the forests of Germania, east of the river Rhine, in country Rome has no proper map for. You are a legionary, one man in a marching column so long that you cannot see its head or its tail. By the time this rain stops, nearly every man around you will be dead. 3 whole legions, the 17th, the 18th, and the 19th, will be erased so completely that Rome, and all the centuries of army lists that follow, will never use those 3 numbers again. This is the Teutoburg Forest. Before this week, it is only trees. After it, it will be the name of the worst day the Roman army has ever known. You are not supposed to be fighting today. You are supposed to be going home. The campaigning season is ending. Your commander is Publius Quinctilius Varus, a Roman aristocrat married into the family of the Emperor Augustus himself, sent to govern this raw new province and make it Roman. Varus is not the fool that later Romans will make him out to be, but he is a governor more than a soldier. He has spent the season holding court, settling disputes, collecting taxes, behaving as though Germania is already a quiet province like the ones he once ran in Syria and Africa. Now he is marching his army back toward the Rhine for winter. 3 legions, plus auxiliaries and cavalry, perhaps 15,000 to 20,000 fighting men, and behind them a long tail of servants, merchants, women, and children. A legion in your world is the backbone of Rome, around 5,000 men drilled to fight as a single machine. 3 of them together should be able to walk anywhere on earth and fear nothing. You carry everything on your own back, the pack, the tools, the palisade stakes, so much that soldiers joke bitterly that they are Marius's mules. You have been the most feared thing in the world for so long that you have forgotten what it feels like to lose. And then a message reaches Varus. A local tribe, he is told, is in revolt, not far off the line of march. It would be simple to swing over and put it down on the way. The man who brings this news is trusted completely. His name is Arminius. You know Arminius. Everyone does. He is a young nobleman of the Cherusci, one of the German tribes, but he was raised in part among Romans. He speaks Latin. He holds Roman citizenship, and he has been raised to the rank of an equestrian, a member of Rome's knightly class. He commands German auxiliaries, non-citizen soldiers who fight alongside the legions in Rome's own service. He rides at Varus's side. He eats at Varus's table. Another German chieftain, a rival named Segestes, has warned Varus to his face that Arminius means to betray him. Varus does not believe it. Why would he? Arminius is one of Rome's own. But Arminius has done something no one thought possible. Quietly, tribe by tribe, he has knitted the scattered feuding peoples of the German forests into a single secret alliance. The revolt is bait. The friendly guide is the trap, and he knows exactly where he is leading you. How do you defend against an enemy who has learned your language, worn your uniform, and studied the way you march, and then turned every piece of it against you? You're about to find out. Arminius peels away with his auxiliaries, promising to gather more local troops and rejoin the column. He does not go to gather troops. He goes to spring the ambush. The path ahead narrows. This is not a battlefield. There is no open plain where your legions can form their lines and do the one thing they do better than anyone alive. The track threads between wooded hills and soft, waterlogged bog, squeezing the great column thinner and thinner, men and mules and wagons strung over miles of forest trail. The rain turns the earth to grease. The trees crowd in on both sides until the sky is a gray ribbon far overhead. A Roman legion is at its deadliest when it can lock shields shoulder to shoulder, a hedge of shields and javelins moving as one. That takes space and level ground and warning. Here you have none of the three. You cannot see the man 100 paces ahead. You cannot form anything at all. You are not an army right now. You are a very long, very thin line of individual men. Tu hollow, Tamara, dern de don tenna, don't a one o block so, tu how a d. Then the forest comes alive. The first spears come out of the trees. They come from everywhere and nowhere at once, flung down from the high ground, thrown from behind trunks, by men you barely glimpse before they vanish back into the green. There is no enemy line to charge. There is no front to break. There are only the woods and death falling out of them. At Kalkriese, the site most historians now believe was the heart of the killing ground, the Germans had built their trap in advance, along the foot of a wooded hill where the dry path pinched to a narrow corridor beside the bog. They had raised a long wall of turf and timber hidden among the trees. From behind it, they waited in silence. Your column walks into the gap, and the whole hillside erupts with men. You try to fight back. But how do you lock shields against an enemy who will not stand still? How do you throw your pilum, the heavy javelin built to punch through a shield and bend on impact so it cannot be hurled back, at men who strike once and melt away? Your shield is swollen and heavy with rain. If you have a bow, the string hangs slack and useless in the wet. The Roman writer Cassius Dio, who left the fullest surviving account of these days, describes exactly this: the storm, the sodden shields, the tangled trees, the ground giving way beneath your feet. You do not lose in an hour. That is the horror of it. You die slowly, over days. The first day, the battered column claws its way clear and manages, by instinct, to do what Roman soldiers always do at dusk: dig in. You throw up a ditch and rampart and hold through the night. Varus is still alive. Discipline still holds, barely. The next morning you burn the wagons you cannot drag any further, and march on, praying to reach open ground, praying to reach the Rhine. You do not reach it! The attacks never stop. Every mile, more spears out of the trees. Every mile, more men down in the mud, and no way to bury them, no way to carry them, no way to do anything but keep moving and hope you are not next. Numonius Valla, the commander of the cavalry, loses his nerve and tries to gallop the horsemen out and away toward the Rhine, abandoning the foot soldiers to their fate. He does not make it. Neither do they. On foot in that country, there is nowhere to run. By the third day, the column is coming apart at the seams, and somewhere in that ruin, Varus finally understands what he has done, that he led these men here, that there is no way out, that the eagles of 3 legions are about to fall into enemy hands. An eagle, the Aquila, is the sacred silver standard of a legion, the soul of the unit made metal. To lose one is the deepest shame a Roman army can know. Varus will not be taken alive to watch it happen. Like several of his officers, he falls on his own sword. Some of his officers follow him into death by choice. One camp prefect, a man named Suetonius, surrenders in the hope of mercy. Another, Aegius, chooses to die fighting at the head of his men. It no longer changes anything. With their general dead, what remains of the army dissolves into slaughter. For those taken alive, the end is worse than the sword. The historian Tacitus, writing a century afterward, records what Roman soldiers found when they finally returned to this place 6 years later. Whitened bones scattered across the clearing where men had stood their ground or been cut down running. Broken weapons and the bones of horses tangled together. Human skulls nailed to the trunks of trees. And in the groves nearby, the crude altars where the German priests had sacrificed the captured Roman officers to their gods. All 3 eagles are taken. The legions themselves, the 17th, the 18th, the 19th, are gone, not merely defeated, erased. Over the years that follow, Roman armies will fight their way back into these forests and recover the lost eagles one by one. The first 2 under the General Germanicus a few years later. The last not returned until the reign of the Emperor Claudius decades on. But Rome never re-raises those 3 legions. Their numbers are simply left empty forever, a wound in the army's role where 15,000 men used to be. Far away in Rome, the Emperor Augustus is said to have taken it harder than any blow of his long life. His biographer Suetonius writes that for months he let his hair and beard grow ragged, and that now and then he would strike his head against a door and cry out, "Quinctilius Varus, give me back my legions!" He was an old man by then. Some say he never truly recovered. Another writer, Velleius Paterculus, who had himself served as an officer in these German wars and knew many of the men involved, calls it a catastrophe unequaled since Cannae, the day 2 centuries earlier when Hannibal drowned a Roman army in its own blood in southern Italy. Here is why. 2,000 years later, you should not forget this reign and these trees. Rome had been expanding for as long as anyone could remember. Its instinct was always forward. One more river, one more frontier, one more people brought under the eagles. After the Teutoburg Forest, that instinct broke. Rome came back across the Rhine to punish the tribes and reclaim its honor, and it won some of those fights. But it never again made a serious, lasting attempt to hold Germania as a province. The Rhine became the edge of the Roman world, and it stayed the edge. Think for a moment about what that line came to mean. West and south of the Rhine, the lands grew deeply, permanently Roman. Latin roads, Latin law, and the languages we now call French, Spanish, and Italian. All of them children of Latin. East of the river, the Germanic peoples kept their own tongues, their own gods, their own separate path. The deep roots of German, of Dutch, and of English itself. A surprising amount of the shape of modern Europe still follows, roughly, a border that hardened here in these woods, across 3 days of rain, when 3 legions marched in and did not march out. The proof of it has come back out of the ground. In 1987, a British Army officer and amateur archaeologist named Tony Clun walked the fields near Kalkriese with a metal detector and began pulling up Roman coins and lead sling bullets where no Roman army was ever supposed to have fought. Since then, archaeologists led by scholars such as Peter S. Wells have uncovered the buried turf wall, the scatter of military gear, and pits of human bones dug long after the men had died. Most haunting of all, they lifted from the German soil the iron face of a Roman cavalry helmet, the mask that once covered a young man's features, lying alone where its owner fell. Arminius became a hero to the people he saved. Tacitus, a Roman, still called him the liberator of Germania. 18 centuries later, Germans would raise a vast statue to him on a forested hill, sword lifted to the sky. But you were never a symbol or a lesson or a line in anyone's history. You were a man with one boot, marching in the rain, certain you were going home for the winter. The mud that swallowed your boot on the first morning is the same mud that will hold your bones for 2,000 years, until strangers with soft brushes lift them gently back into the light, and at last try to learn your name.